I never imagined that as a single dad, I'd be silenced by fear when my daughter gasped for air. The day began like any other. Sunlight spilled through cracks in the blinds, dust motes danced, and Ella was humming her favorite tune in the kitchen. It felt normal, peaceful. But that morning, the world shifted. I heard her choke. Panic seized my chest. It was a sound I would never forget. It echoed through my mind, as if my heart had stopped. I rushed toward her. One moment, I was a dad who just poured cereal. The next, I was a nightmare. I thought I was strong. I thought I could handle anything for her. But this was beyond comprehension. Ella, my sweet, bright-eyed girl, was clutching her throat, eyes wide with terror. I could hardly breathe myself. My hands shook as I reached for her. Tears blurred my vision. The kitchen was alive, the hum of the fridge, the ticking clock, but it felt like I was underwater. Everything muted, voices echoing in my ears. Not today, please, not today. The clock's harsh tick-tock pierced through the silence, marking each agonizing second. I felt lightheaded, lost. My thoughts raced chaotically. Remember the basics, I thought. I gripped her shoulders, whispered calming words, but my voice trembled. My confidence faltered. What if I couldn't help her? The air was charged. I noticed the sunlight suddenly cold, the color of the room fading, as if sorrow was slowly seeping in. I glanced at her tiny face, her breaths shortening, lips turning pale. Heart racing, I scanned the room, searching for a lifeline. My world was flipping upside down, yet everything around me remained eerily still. What about her mother? She had left us years ago, chasing dreams down a path that led away from us. Ella and I were each other's everything. Would I lose her too? I felt a lump rise, unbearable weight settling in my chest. My phone, but it felt miles away. With trembling fingers, I fumbled, frantically swiping the screen, adrenaline coursing, wishing for help to come, praying for a miracle. The air was thick, wrapping around us like a shroud. I wanted to scream, a wild, desperate cry, but all that came out was a panicked whisper, "Breathe, sweetheart, breathe." Just then, a strange sound pierced through the panic. An old woman passing by outside, her cane tapping against the pavement, a slow, deliberate rhythm. It was out of place, as if she were moving purposefully through the chaos of that moment. I felt her gaze. How could she see this? I wanted to shout for help, but fear locked my voice away. And then a gasp that tore the silence apart like thunder. My heart sank as Ella's eyes rolled back, and I felt as if the ground was pulled from under me. I was drowning in terror, horror, squeezing my heart. What do I do? I was losing her in front of me. In every horror film, there are these moments where all seems lost, but there's always a twist, right? I held that fragile hope close. Could this just be another chapter in our story? And then it happened. My phone buzzed furiously in my pocket. I jerked, the noise breaking through my fog. I felt a spark of energy flash through Memabe. There was a way. Help just at my fingertips. I reached for my phone. Please, let it be the savior I needed. But when I looked up, Ella was still gasping. My heart sank. Was it too late? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. I felt as if time folded in on itself, every second stretching into infinity as I stared at Ella. The panic roller coaster inside me twisted and turned. Heartbeats thudded loudly in my ears, drowning out any possibility of coherent thought. All I could see was her face, a beautiful mosaic of innocence, now tainted by fear, her little mouth gasping for what felt like an eternity. The world around us faded into insignificance. The kitchen, with its morning light, felt distant and unreal. I could hear the rhythmic tip-tap of that old woman outside, mingling with Ella's struggle, forming a discordant symphony that echoed misery. My fingers trembled as I gripped my phone, sweat-soaked and slippery, my mind racing through fragmented instructions I once memorized for emergencies. "Stay calm," I whispered, even though my voice trembled like a small bird caught in a storm. I inched closer, willing the bond between us to somehow translate my frantic thoughts into something she could understand. "Just hold on to me, Ella. I'm right here." Just as I took a breath to scream for help, a sturdy knock broke through my suffocating bubbles of fear. It shattered the stillness that encased us like a prison. The old woman, she was at the door. I hadn't even realized. Whatever warmth I felt was now burning with urgency. I dropped my phone and rushed to the door, flinging it open. "Help!" My voice broke as panic poured out of me, ragged and raw. The woman looked ancient yet sturdy, eyes sharp as they scanned the room, and landed on Ella, still gasping. "What's happening?" she asked, her tone calm and authoritative, piercing through my haze of dread. I opened my mouth, yet the words caught like barbed wire in my throat. Choking. "I don't know," I stumbled over my emotions, unable to form a clear thought, desperation lining my voice. The old woman took command, gliding past me with an agility that belied her years. I stepped aside, unsure of what to do, transfixed as she knelt beside Ella. "You're going to be okay," she said, her voice craggy yet soothing, like a seasoned storyteller. She placed her hands on Ella's back, applying pressure with deliberate strength. Ella's body jerked, head bobbing slightly as the old woman repeated the motions. "Breathe, little darling. Focus on me." I didn't know whether to stay rooted in shock or embrace the new flicker of hope igniting inside me. I felt tears brimming as I silently begged for help from any deity that would listen. Just as despair threatened to sweep everything away, I witnessed a miracle. Ella coughed violently, a sputtering sound that broke through the veil of uncertainty. A piece of cereal popped out, and for the briefest moment the air shifted. The old woman sat back on her haunches, sighing with a weighty relief that felt palpable in the stillness of the kitchen. "See?" she murmured, ghosting Ella's hair behind her ear. "You did it." Ella gasped again, but this time it was different, a shaky intake like an awakening. "Daddy?" she croaked, her eyes finding mine, searching for the anchor that had been so tenuous seconds before. Rushing to her side, I enveloped her in my arms, relief sweeping through me like warm sunlight. "I'm here, baby. I'm here." I held her close, pressing kisses in her hair, feeling the dusk of horror falling away with every heartbeat. The old woman watched us somehow, both a stranger and a saint, her presence weaving warmth through the once-chilled air. "You're a brave one," she said softly, admiration glowing in her gaze. "You're going to be just fine, both of you." But as relief washed over me, another wave of emotion crashed. I suddenly realized the painful truth: this could happen again. The fragility of life, edges frayed and raw, hovered dangerously close. My heart quaked with the weight of unspoken fears, a reality I had desperately tried to protect my daughter from. "Thank you," I said, turning to the woman who had embodied kindness in our darkest hour. But as I looked up, I saw something flickering in her eyes, a hint of a shadow behind her warmth, a story left untold. "And you," she said, her voice quaking as if torn. "Between worlds, you need to take care of each other." Abruptly, she rose to her feet and walked past me toward the door, her cane tapping out a slow, reassuring beat. "Not everyone can protect their loved ones, you know." Those words reverberated in the silence that followed. What did she know? Who was she? I barely had time to ponder as she stepped away and, without looking back, whispered, "Sometimes the hardest burdens are the ones we don't even acknowledge." And then she was gone, leaving the air thick with questions, fear woven into the newfound relief like a bitter aftertaste. I held Ella tightly, the weight of those words circling my thoughts. Could I really protect her? What if our misfortunes were only beginning? I closed my eyes, wrapping my arms around her, trying to absorb the reality of the moment, unaware of the storm brewing just beyond the horizon. The world around us seemed to crystallize, holding its breath in the wake of the old woman's departure. I sat motionless on the kitchen floor, still cradling Ella, her small frame soft against my chest. Her heartbeat slowly stabilized, and with each rhythmic thump, I found a small reserve of comfort. Yet unease wove itself tightly into my thoughts, an uninvited specter that now loomed larger than before. And my mind flickered back to the woman's parting words, burdens not acknowledged. What unspoken truths had I hidden away, consciously or otherwise? I gently stroked Ella's back, feeling the warmth beneath my palm. How do I protect her when I feel so vulnerable myself? The question gnawed at the edges of my mind like a ravenous beast. What happened, Daddy? Ella's voice broke the silence, small and tremulous, yet laced with an innocent curiosity that tugged painfully at my heart. I pulled back slightly to meet her eyes, those deep pools that mirrored my own, filled with a whirlpool of emotions, fear, confusion, but most importantly, love. You choked on a cereal piece. Baby, I managed to say, my voice hoarse, swallowing the lump forming in my throat. But we had help. You're okay now? I forced a smile, one I hoped was contagious enough to banish the shadows lingering within. But why did it happen? She pressed, and my heart constricted again. I had long craved the simplicity of life before this moment, when Ella's biggest worry was whether she'd get sprinkles on her waffles or if we could go to the park. Now, here I was, drowning in the complexities of fear and uncertainty. I don't know, I murmured, raking a weary hand through my hair. Sometimes things just happen, sweet pea. But what's important is that we're here, right? And we'll always find a way to keep each other safe. Her eyes searched mine, perhaps for the reassurance she needed. Will you always protect me, Daddy? The question pierced through me like a sharp blade. I hesitated, words failing to breach the growing chasm of doubt. Of course, Ella, I finally answered, my voice steadying in a bid to convince us both. I promise I'll always do my best. As the laughter of children drifted through our open window, my heart swelled with the bittersweet scent of nostalgia. Could I bear to let her experience life in its entirety while trembling on the edge of the unknown? Let's get you some water, I said, rising to my feet while still holding her against me. I glanced outside to catch a fleeting glimpse of the old woman retreating down the street, her silhouette a mere shadow vanishing into the brightness of the day. I felt a strange tug at my heart, a mix of gratitude and apprehension. What did she see in us? I turned back to the kitchen and set Ella down, watching as she navigated her way to the table, where remnants of cereal lay scattered across the floor like remnants of a lost battle. As I filled a cup, a small realization dawned on me. Here in my home, even amidst turmoil, hope threaded through our lives like sunlight breaking through clouds. Hey, I called to her, smiling as she clambered back onto the chair. Do you remember that time we made glitter bombs and sent them flying out the balcony? Her face lit up, the corners of her mouth curling into a smile that wrenched at the tension that had laced the air moments before. Yeah, she exclaimed, bouncing gleefully in her seat, her spirit igniting once more. Can we do it again? Why not? I laughed, the sound echoing with newfound resolve. The sparkle in her eyes was a reminder that even the darkest days could cultivate light, a flicker that brought warmth to the coldest corners. But as we began to chatter about our next great adventure, the reprieve of laughter was abruptly shattered by the relentless shrill of my phone ringing. It pulled me abruptly from that newfound camaraderie, a volatile reminder that life could turn unpredictable in an instant. I glanced at the screen, dread pooling in my stomach. It was Sarah, my ex-wife. In moments like these, her name felt more like a storm warning than a connection. Yet somehow, I could feel the weight of the unresolved filling the spaces between us, an unshakable tether that bound the past and present. What if I started to say, but Ella's curious gaze met mine, catching the tension I hadn't meant to reveal. What if it's someone else needing help? I answered instead. With shaky hands, I composed myself and answered, hello? Her voice slithered through the line, distant and laden with uncertainty. "We need to talk," she said, a gravity in her tone that set my heart racing. "There's something I haven't told you." My breath caught in my throat, the gravity of her words ricocheting through my mind, unraveling a fresh thread of worry that weaved itself into all the uncertainties surrounding Ella's choking incident. "No," I began, the words feeling like chains attached to my heart. "Not now. Not after," but I was cut off by another sentence that hung in the air, sharp and electric. "It's about Ella." The room faded around me, the warm light dimming as the implications of her words sunk in like anchors. An emotional cliff loomed before me, and as I stared down into the abyss, I realized I was not just terrified for my daughter, but for the secrets begging to be revealed, secrets that could potentially redefine everything I thought I knew about our lives. The air felt heavier as I gripped the phone tighter, my knuckles nearly white against the plastic casing. "What do you mean?" I forced the words out, each syllable carrying the weight of 1,000 questions, hovering ominously like storm clouds. There was a pause on the other end, a pregnant silence thick with hesitation. "I can't explain everything right now, but you need to hear me out. It's important." "Important how?" I asked, my voice trembling with a mix of anger and desperation. How could she rattle my already fragile world with vague implications? The remnants of our chaotic past tangled with a present that demanded clarity. "Just promise me you won't overreact," she finally said, the urgency in her tone wrapping around me like a cold shroud. "Ella needs you to listen." What could she possibly say that could alter my perception of her daughter? In that moment, I felt as if the ground beneath me was collapsing, the walls of my Hamimi sanctuary closing in. Yet, amidst the swirling chaos in my heart, Ella's laughter still danced in my ears, a soothing balm against the rising tide of dread. I started, glancing at Ella, who was now fidgeting with a strand of her hair, her innocence stark against the turmoil surrounding us. "I can't just what, Sarah? Just tell me." "Ella, she's in danger, and it's don't you dare say another word until you explain," I shouted, before clamping down on my tongue, instantly regretting the harshness. The sound startled Ella, who looked over her shoulder, confusion etched across her face. "Daddy?" she asked, her small voice trembling that I swallowed hard, guilt flooding my veins. "I'm okay, pumpkin. I'm just talking to someone. Can you give me a minute?" Her eyes remained wary, her childlike intuition sensing the tension swirling around the room. I turned my back to her, trying to shelter her from my fraying emotions. "Sarah, please," I whispered, my voice shaking now. "What's this about? What danger?" I discovered something an issue from my past that implicates Ella. I didn't think it mattered. She paused, the words swirling in a way that made my heart race with uncertainty. "But I made a mistake, and now it's come back. Is this some kind of joke?" I murmured, disbelief washing over me like icy water. "You never thought it mattered? My daughter is living with me. What could possibly be so important?" A deep sigh crackled through the line. "I can't explain it right now, but you need to be aware. There are people who might be watching us, people I thought I left behind when we divorced. And Elish is inadvertently involved. My world began spinning on an axis I never recognized, nausea curling in my stomach. "What do you mean? How?" My voice cracked like glass, shards of fear slicing through the jumbled words. "They may come after her, thinking it's a way to get to me. I swear I never meant for it to get this far." The trembling in her voice mirrored the tempest raging within me. I felt as if I stood on a precipice over an abyss, the ground crumbling beneath me further with each new revelation. "Why now? After all this time, Sarah? Why not tell me sooner?" Because I was afraid her voice faded into a whisper. "I didn't want to drag you into my mess. I thought it was over." Ella's laughter faltered, replaced by silence, as she focused on a small toy car, oblivious to the thunderous conversation echoing around her. I could feel time slowing, the weight of unspoken fears looming larger than the confounding situation itself. "Ella!" I shouted, panic slicing through me as I rushed to her side. "We have to go." She blinked, taken aback by the urgency in my voice. "Where?" "Just please, trust me." I knelt down to her level, cupping her face in my trembling hands, forcing myself to search her eyes for the trust and love that had anchored me before. "Put on your shoes. We need to leave. Are we going to the park?" she asked, a hint of excitement slipping through her confusion. "No, baby, it's not safe. I stammered, clenching my fists at how quickly my plans for a normal life were unraveling. "We have to just follow my lead." Okay, I was not ready for this. Ella needed the comforting routine of our lives, the simple joys we built together. But I felt a shadow of an old life creeping back into ours. With Sarah's words still echoing in my head, I could sense the familiar darkness threatening to swallow us whole. As Ella slipped on her shoes, I stole another glance at the phone, her voice still rattling in my heart. "I'll handle it," I murmured to myself, but my voice faltered with the weight of my doubt. "I'll protect you, I swear." As we stepped outside, the sun was still shining, and I wanted nothing more than to bathe in its warmth. Yet it felt like a cruel illusion amid the brewing storm. The challenges ahead loomed jagged and uncertain, overshadowing the bright beginnings I had dreamed of with Ella. Just as I moved to take her hand, I spotted a shadow loom in the distance, a figure enveloped in the haze of the impending dusk. My heart leaped into my throat, recognizing the man watching us from afar's presence, sending the day's light plunging into chaos. Ella tugged on my hand, oblivious to the new simple terror that whispered warnings in my ear. "Daddy? Who's that?" "Stay close," I instructed, my voice steady but laced with an urgency that masked the panic boiling inside me. And as that figure took a step closer, I realized me vow to keep my daughter safe had just become an echo of a haunting past I could no longer ignore. The sun hung low, casting long shadows that mimicked my thoughts, dark and uncertain as I clutched Ella's hand tighter. The man in the distance remained fixed, a granite statue of dread etched against the warm hues of the fading day. He wore a dark jacket and a baseball cap pulled low, just enough to obscure his face, but I could feel his gaze drilling into my back like a silencing arrow. "Daddy, can we go home?" Ella's question cut through the panic settling in my chest. Innocence wrapped around her words, and it felt suffocating in the moment. I had always prided myself on creating a safe space for Hera, fortress fortified with love and laughter. And yet, here I stood, fumbling, grappling with the reality that everything I built could be shattered in the blink of an eye. Just a little further, pumpkin. I summoned a smile, my throat dry and tight, as I turned away from the figure, focusing instead on the path ahead. Each step felt like walking through molasses, an insistent sense of urgency gnawing at my insides. "How about we get ice cream instead?" Her eyes brightened, and it nearly broke me. In the face of impending dread, how could I still be searching for moments of joy? I leaned down closer, heart quickening as ideas for escape churned in my mind. "You love chocolate chip cookie dough, right?" "Yay!" Her joy radiated like sunlight, piercing through the growing shadows. But even as I led her forward, a glimpse back over my shoulder told me the man remained resolutely a predator lying in wait. As we rounded the corner, I led Ella to a nearby park, the soft, playful laughter of children reverberating in the air and temporarily displacing the dark weight pressing on my chest. We could blend in. There was safety in numbers. "Look, Daddy." Ella pointed to a cluster of swings, and the innocence of her delight was an intoxicating balm to my fraying nerves. I forced a deep breath, remembering the playful smile I wore earlier. "Let's have fun," but a knot of anxious energy twisted in my gut as I watched her run off, her small legs carrying her toward what had once been an ordinary, blissful day. The world around me blurred momentarily, my mind running wild with possibilities, each darker than the last. Would he follow us? Could I shield her from whatever threat hung in the air like a storm cloud? Suddenly, an unexpected figure stepped close to me, a woman with bright blue eyes framed by blonde curls who I'd never seen before, yet an impulse jolted through me. "Excuse me," she spoke softly, almost conspiratorially. "I couldn't help but overhear part of your conversation. If you need help, I can help." I narrowed my eyes, skepticism mingling with a hint of desperation. "Help," I echoed, trying to read her face for sincerity. "From what?" "Trust me." She glanced over her shoulder discreetly. "I've seen a man watching you. I know you don't know me, but he's not someone to take lightly. You should go." "Who are you?" I demanded, the hairs on the back of my neck rising. "I'm just a concerned friend. I used to be involved with him, and I know what he's capable of." Her eyes flared with urgency. Or was it fear? "He's dangerous. You need to get out of here. Now." Ella's laughter echoed over the swaying swings, blissful and loud, and in the chaos brewing inside me, a part of me wanted nothing more than to drag her closer and shield her from the world. But I couldn't let fear control us. "What do you mean involved? What do you know?" My heart raced, battling the instinct to dismiss her warning. "There's no time for details. Just trust Mayhay's not here for you. He's looking for your ex-wife. She's drawn him back. You need to move, please. Don't say anything to Ella," I hissed, glancing at my daughter, who had climbed onto the swing, oblivious to the danger we were in. "I want," she promised, sincerity etching her features. "But please believe me." She reached out, hesitating, then lowered her hand. "Bring her to my car. I can get you both to safety." I hesitated, the trust one needed to give slipping through my fingers like grains of sand. It felt wrong. It felt desperate, but so did staying put. "Where's your car?" "Over there." She nodded towards a silver sedan parked near a labyrinth of trees surrounding the playground. I could feel the clock ticking down ominously, reality sneering at me with every second I stayed in place. "Okay." I forced the words out as my decision solidified in my chest. I had no other choice but to trust Ella. I called, my voice infused with renewed authority as I turned my focus toward her. The reckless joy on her face was a stark reminder of every potential loss I could face. "Can you come here for a second?" She swung down with a joyful whoop, but froze mid-step when she caught sight of the woman. "Daddy?" Her innocence hung in the air, fragile as glass. "Who is she?" "Just a friend," I replied, forcing a calmness I didn't feel. I would remain her protective wall, come what may. It was raw and electric. This moment hinged on the precipice of vulnerability. My heart raced as I took her hand, the warmth of her small fingers giving me a grounding I desperately needed. "We need to go, sweetheart, but I want to play," she protested, her eyes flicking toward the swings like they held the secrets to happiness. "Trust me, I know it's hard," I said, kneeling down to meet her gaze. "But we're going on an adventure, just you and me. This is about keeping us safe." I could see a flicker of doubt, an echo of fear creeping into her expression, but she nodded. "Okay, Daddy." As we turned to follow the woman with the urgent eyes, my heart raced, every beat prophetic as I stole one last glance at the looming figure still shadowing the perimeter of the park. My skin prickled under the weight of his presence, the past refusing to release its grip on our fragile future. But just as I summoned the strength to move forward, a sharp gasp echoed from the distance, slicing through the air. I whipped around to see Ella standing still, her eyes wide as she clutched a small toy in her hand, her face drained of color. Daddy, in that frozen moment, time coiled tightly around us. I was sure of two things. We were far from safe, and this unexpected adventure was about to plunge us deeper into a darkness we couldn't comprehend. The heart-stopping revelation tethered us to something larger, an unwelcomed confrontation with fear that would change everything forever. I never imagined that as a single dad, I'd be silenced by fear when my daughter gasped for air. The world around us fell away, the laughter of the playground swallowed by an impending storm. Ella's fingers tightened on the toy she clutched, a small plush giraffe she had received at a birthday party months ago. Its innocent fabric seemed out of place amid our escalating terror. "Daddy, look." Her voice trembled as she pointed toward the entrance of the park. My heart sank as I followed her gaze. Emerging from the shadows was a figure I recognized too well, Joan, my ex-wife, looking frantic, her eyes wide with fear. Despite the years apart, a chill ran through me each time I saw her. She was beautiful, even then, But now a different kind of fear sharpened her features, deepening the lines of worry etched on her forehead. "Ella," she called, a desperate cry that shattered the fragile calm I had been trying to maintain. "You need to come here. We have to leave." I could see the swirling chaos brewing in her expression, a silent plea for help. But I stood paralyzed, torn between two mothers in my life. The one who was present, desperate to protect, and the one who could so easily be swept away by darkness if I wasn't careful. "Don't go to her," the stranger urged beside me, her voice low and urgent. "She brought him here, Mommy." Ella's voice was bright, unaware of the storm brewing around her. She let go of my hand and started moving toward her mother, each step seemingly in slow motion. "No, Ella," I shouted, instinct taking hold as I lunged for her. But the world around us became a blur, each moment stretching painfully as I reached for her. Desperation charged through my veins, adrenaline igniting my limbs as I sprinted, my pulse roaring in my ears and muffling everything but my instinct to protect her. In that heartbeat, I saw Joan's face morph into something darker, more guarded. She cast a glance over her shoulder, and that fleeting moment of vulnerability was swallowed by something more sinister lurking behind her. "Ella, come back, please," I pleaded, reaching for her as she was caught in the mesmerizing pull of her mother's voice. But I was too late. Ella reached her mother, and the distance between us seemed insurmountable. Joan scooped her into her arms, confusion bubbling across Ella's face. I could feel the weight of my failures and fears crashing down on me like a tidal wave, my heart heavy as I gripped the air, helpless. "Get away from her," I shouted, every inch of me igniting with protective fury. The woman beside me reached for my arm, urging me to stay back, but the instinct to fight for my little girl's safety surged within me. Joan looked me in the eyes, but there was a hard edge to her gaze, an intensity that sent chills spiraling through me. "You don't understand, Daniel. It's not safe. We have to go now." The disconnected memories of our past spiraled around in my mind, confrontations once filled with love, now twisted by something dark and tangled. It registered, the subconscious not tying tightly around my heart. The man in the park wasn't just a vague threat. He was a ghost from our shattered past that neither of us could escape. "She doesn't have to be part of this," I shouted again, each word laden with desperation, knowing Ella needed to be safe from whatever world we fled from. "Daniel, please." Joan's voice cracked, teetering on the edge between authority and genuine fear. But was it authentic? My instincts screamed louder, yet I remained frozen, Daddy. Ella's frightened voice penetrated through the completely spiraled moment, her eyes wide as she looked between us, confusion washing over her. "What's happening?" Frantic with uncertainty, I shouted her name and reached again. "Ella, come here." My voice trembled, drowning in the rising tide of emotions that frazzled my senses. Then came a storm of movement. I spotted the flash of dark clothing from the corner of my eye. The figure that had loomed in the distance emerged from the shadows, advancing with a determined, eerie calm. My heart slammed against my ribs, echoing with dread as I turned to find the man from before, bound in purpose like a looming specter. "Joan," I cried, and though I felt tethered to my daughter, I knew that instinct would lead me toward this man's looming menace. "Run! Both of you! Run!" As her gaze flared, I could see the madness behind her grip on Ella. Had she called him here? Realization surged through me, bleeding through the edges of my chaotic thoughts. This was not just a chase. This was a reckoning. Every decision, every moment led us here, circling back to beginnings that demanded a dark resolution. "Mommy," Ella cried, her little voice ringing sharply as it echoed through the park. My breath caught, fear wrapping around my throat as I recognized the painful irony. My little girl stood on the precipice of danger, blissfully unaware of the true threat encroaching upon us. The man's slow, deliberate approach was inexorable, a harbinger of the terrible unknown. My body tensed as I braced myself between joy and despair. I could hardly breathe. "Ella, hold on to your mother." I shouted, scrambling to reclaim my daughter from a fate I couldn't yet comprehend. But as I barreled toward them, everything seemed to fracture, time curling into twisted shapes, and the world caught in a maelstrom of choices, unmade, now battling for control. Get away from them. The stranger's voice pierced through the air again, more commanding now, drawing the man's attention momentarily and bearing witness as I surged forward. But as I reached Joan and Ella, I could feel the ground shift beneath me, and one thread of reality snapped taut in instinct. I pulled my daughter close, clutching her against me in a protective embrace as Joan stepped back with curiosity mingled with fear. I could hear footsteps behind me, grating on gravel, building toward a climax I couldn't avert. I in that electric juncture of revelation, of love and fear coiling together. I turned to face the advancing specter, heart racing, ready to shield my daughter from the darkness that threatened to engulf us both. But just as our fates converged, Ella's soft voice broke through the noise. "Daddy, I can't breathe." And in that moment, everything shifted, a blow to the core of my being as the weight of dread pressed down heavily, each heartbeat a reminder that our little fortress of safety felt impossibly fragile against an unseen and unyielding threat that awaited beyond the veil of day. I stood there, frozen, with Ella tightly gripped in my arms. The park around us faded into a blur, my focus narrowing onto her small, fragile frame. Panic swelled within me, fueled by her plea that breached the fragile walls of my heart. "Daddy, I can't breathe." The words echoed like a thunderclap, jolting me into action. "Ella, just hold on. Just breathe for me, okay?" My voice trembled, but I tried to mask my fear with calm, forcing back the surge of dread that threatened to overwhelm me. Her little body felt so small against mine, and I could feel the weight of her trust pressing against my chest. Just ahead, the figure loomed closer, its presence a dark cloud on our sunlit world. Joan's face twisted with an array of conflicting emotions as she edged closer, her eyes darting between us and the encroaching shadow. "Ella." Her voice was sharp, but her expression was softening, as if she was trying to break through to a version of herself that still cared. "We need to leave. Please, trust me." But I couldn't let go of my daughter. She was the lifeline tethering me to this reality, keeping me afloat in a tempest of choices. "I can't let her go with you," I shouted back at Joan, anger mixed with desperation. My heart threatened to shatter under the weight of my choices. From across the expanse of the playground, the stranger ID encountered earlier moved closer, her face drawn with a mixture of determination and concern. "You both need to get out of here," she urged, the gravity of her tone emphasizing that this was bigger than just a personal conflict. "We don't have much time." "Who are you?" I barked, unwilling to let my guard down. How could I trust anyone when danger was closing in? "I'm just someone who wants to help," she replied, her sincerity resonating but weighed down by an undeniable sense of urgency. "That man won't stop. He won't rest until he gets what he's after." I felt the air around us shift, a tension that prickled at the back of my neck. Ella shifted in my arms, her breathing still shallow and panicked. "Daddy, please," she whimpered, and her small, pleading gaze tethered my heart to this moment. I could feel every muscle in my body screaming to protect her from any potential harm. Suddenly, Joan took a step closer and reached out, desperation washing over her features. "I can explain. There are things you don't know. He's dangerous, and if we don't—" She collapsed mid-sentence, fear painting her words, a black shadow creeping over her resolve. "What things?" I pressed, trying to swallow the knot forming in my throat. "What does he want?" But before she could respond, the looming figure advanced further still, the aura of darkness surrounding him wrapping tighter around my heart. My instinct screamed at me to stay vigilant, to do anything to keep my daughter safe, stay back. I roared, positioning myself protectively around Ella, my body instinctively finding the tactical position between her and the threat. The stranger beside me made a sudden move, a brave attempt to distract the man, arms outstretched in a barrier of courage. "Run," she shouted, her voice slicing through the air. But time slowed again as my heart thundered against my ribs. "Ella, hold your breath. Just a little longer," I whispered desperately, and I felt tears prick my eyes as I looked into hers. The vulnerability in her gaze mirrored the storm within me, two fragments of broken people tangled in the throes of madness. The man paused momentarily, his gaze settling on the stranger, something dark and calculating brewing beneath his surface. Then, without warning, he lunged toward her. I released a fierce yell, an instinctive roar of raw protectiveness, and propelled myself forward. Ella fell momentarily to my side, her small gasp echoing through the air, and I turned to grab her hand, ready to run. "Daddy!" she cried, panic lacing her voice again. I felt the tension in the air shift, a fleeting moment of hesitation from the man that seemed to grant us just the edge we needed. "This way!" shouted the stranger, urging us to follow. We sprinted toward the park's exit, adrenaline spiking, legs pumping hard against the unforgiving ground. I could hear the heavy footfalls behind us, echoing against the tangible fear that gripped my heart. Joan's voice faded into the ruckus, her shouts drowned out by our fleeing footsteps. "Keep going." The stranger propelled us forward as we crossed the threshold of the park, the shadow falling behind like a thunderstorm gathering beyond our horizon. Sweat dripped down my back, and I gasped for air, but I could see the lights spilling into a quiet street up ahead. "Almost there," I urged, clutching Ella's small hand tightly, willing her to keep moving despite her struggle to keep up. When we reached the street, a glimmer of hope blossomed within me. But then the earth seemed to tremble beneath us. There was a heart-stopping silence that finished our breaths. In a blink, I turned, and the shadowy figure appeared at the entrance of the park, silhouetted against the fading sun, a formidable predator clawing its way into our reality. "Why don't you come back, Daniel?" he called out. His voice was a slithering hiss that coiled around me. "She's just getting started." I felt the blood drain from my face as icy dread slithered into my bones. The past ID thought buried clawed its way back. I realized then that the true terror wasn't just the man. It was the fear of what lay ahead of Joan's secrets, of hidden truths that could unravel everything ID fought to protect. "Daddy?" Ella's soft voice trembled beside me, her innocent question cutting through the darkness, suffocating me. "Is it over?" Even as we stood teetering on the brink of impending danger, I knew deep down that the battle hadn't even begun, and the weight of an unresolved fight loomed ominously before us. The world spun around us, a dizzying blur of color and sound, yet all I could focus on was Ella's frightened face. "No, sweetie, it's not over," I murmured, forcing my voice to remain steady. I had to be the rock she needed, the fortress against whatever darkness loomed ahead. "Daddy," she whimpered, her small fingers clutching mine like a lifeline. I looked down into her terrified eyes, and I saw the reflection of my own panic. The man's chilling laughter curled through the air, wrapping around us like a noose. "Let's find somewhere safe," the stranger said, her voice urgent. "There's a cafe a few blocks down. We can hide there until we figure this out." I nodded once, swallowing hard against the fear bubbling up inside me. My heart hammered in my chest as I propelled Ella forward, her feet stumbling to match my frantic pace. Thoughts of that man's shadow haunted me, a ghost whispering doubts in the corners of my mind. Who was he? And what had Joan meant when Shed said there were things I didn't know? As we hurried down the street, the vibrant sounds of everyday life began to fade, lost beneath the sound of our racing hearts. I could feel Ella's fear merging with mine, our breaths synchronizing into a rhythm of desperation. "We're going to be okay, baby," I said, more to convince myself than her. "Just hold on to me." Within moments, we reached the cafe, its quaint exterior disguising the turmoil that roiled within me. The bell above the door chirped lightly as we entered, a temporary reprieve from the chaos outside. The smell of fresh coffee and baked goods filled the air, a sharp contrast to the suffocating fear that had consumed us only moments ago. "Is this place safe?" I asked the stranger, my voice weighed down by weariness. "For now," she replied, glancing around as if searching for lurking shadows. "But we don't have much time." Ella tugged at my sleeve, her eyes wide and shimmering with unshed tears. "I'm scared, Daddy," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. I knelt down to her level, cradling her face within my hands. "I know, baby, but you're safe here. No one can hurt you, I promise." My heart twisted painfully at the sight of her vulnerability, the innocence of childhood being overshadowed by the monstrous weight of fear. I had never pictured myself in this role, the father who struggled just to keep his daughter safe. But here we were, embroiled in a terrifying reality that felt surreal. The noise of the cafe faded as I drowned in memories of laughter, art projects, and bedtime story moments that seemed a lifetime away from this moment of dread. Suddenly, the stranger leaned closer, urgency flashing in her eyes. "I know this is hard to understand, but Ella isn't just a victim here. There are forces at play." Her voice caught her throat as she noticed something outside the window. I followed her gaze, adrenaline spiking as I caught sight of the man, his silhouette etched against the background of the cafe's entrance. Panic clawed at my chest. "We have to go," I shouted, grasping Ella's hand tightly. But just as we turned to escape, the stranger's hand shot out, gripping my arm. "Wait. If he sees you trying to bolt, it could escalate." Her urgency was palpable, and for a moment, I hesitated. "Why are you helping us?" I demanded, struggling against a rush of conflicting emotions. "Because," she began, glancing once more at the man, "I know what he's after. And I think Ella is the key to stopping him." I felt my heart plummet. "What do you mean?" But she avoided my eyes, fear flashing across her face. "It's not safe to talk here. Just trust me, okay? We can help each other." I looked down at Ella, whose wide eyes stared up at me, filled with helpless uncertainty. I knew I had to keep her safe, yet a flicker of suspicion ignited within me. Was this woman truly on our side, or was she another player in this twisted game? Suddenly, there was a loud bang at the door, startling everyone inside. The cafe patrons looked up, confusion turning to alarm as the door swung wide open on its hinges, the man stepping inside without hesitation. "Ella?" His voice was a low growl, venomous and chilling. "Run," I shouted, shoving Ella toward the back of the cafe as I positioned myself between them. The stranger grasped my shoulder, her eyes wide. "No, we can't let him," but I couldn't hear her over the roar of blood in my ears. I needed to protect my daughter, whatever it took. The man's gaze roamed the room, landing on me with a predatory hunger that filled me with dread. "Let her go," I commanded, my voice trembling with both bravery and uncertainty. His smile was a sneer, cold and calculated. "Oh, Daniel, you really think you can shield her from the truth? This isn't over." Ella clutched my waist, her tiny hands grasping at my shirt, as if she could fuse herself into my being and escape this nightmare. "Ella, listen to me," I said, my voice firm but frantic. "I need you to trust me. We're going to get through this together." Her small nod barely registered against the chaos swelling around us, but I could feel her fear winding tighter around my heart. And then, the world cracked open again, revealing shadows I had hoped to forget. "Everything you've known is a lie," the man taunted, his voice slithering past the panic in my heart. "And you're more tangled in this web than you realize." The grounded reality I clung to felt like it was slipping beneath me, and with that revelation, I felt my breath hitch. My grip on Ella tightened as my worldview shattered, leaving me standing in the wreckage of a life I had thought I could protect. "Daddy, who is he?" Ella's voice, small and broken, reached me, slicing through my dawning horror. I stared into her eyes, adrenaline cool against the rising tide of despair around me. I had to answer not just for her sake, but for my own. "Just hold on, sweetheart," I whispered. But as the man advanced, I realized we were trapped in a vortex of truths too profound to face, and the weight of an awaiting storm loomed closer, threatening to swallow us whole. The air inside the cafe became thick with tension, the moment stretching impossibly as the man eyed us like a predator assessing his prey. My mind raced, calculating outcomes and recalling every article I'd ever read about the instincts of a parent. I refused to let fear suffocate my resolve, though every irrational thought clawed at the edges of my sanity. "Stop right there," I barked, my voice harsher than I intended, but laced with a desperate protective instinct that surged through me. Ella trembled against me, and I could feel her small heart racing in sync with my own. "Daniel," the man said, a mocking smile curling on his lips. "You're not in charge here. Not anymore. Didn't you hear? The truth cannot be hidden for long." The stranger beside me shifted, casting quick glances between the man and the cafe exit, her jaw set tight. "You need to listen to me. Just a few more seconds, and we can shut up," I hissed, my heart pounding against my ribs. I had to keep Ella safe. My mind whirled with thoughts of how many times I'd prepared for the worst in my head, but none of those theories included a version of reality that involved a sinister stranger and threats veiled in cruel manipulation. Without warning, the man lunged forward, and I instinctively put myself in front of Ella, feeling her sob against my back. The cafe erupted into chaos. Patrons screamed and ducked, seeking safety in corners or behind furniture. I could have tightened my grip on a nearby table, but my focus remained solely on the man before us. "Ella, keep your eyes on me," I shouted, moving closer to the wall, creating whatever barrier I could between her and the mounting danger. "Stay right behind me." "Okay." The man laughed, a hollow sound that echoed throughout the room. "Such bravery. But what will you do when you find out the truth? You think shielding her from me protects her? You're just delaying the inevitable." His words echoed cruelly in my mind. What truth? What inevitability? I couldn't shake the sickening feeling that I was teetering on the edge of a vast abyss that threatened to swallow what little hope I had left. The cafe was slowly descending into panic, with people rushing for escape. "We need to move," the stranger urged. "Daniel, we can't stay here." Before I could think, I tightened my hold on Ella and began inching toward the door, convinced that the slight separation from the crowd might give us a chance of breaking free. But the moment I started forward, the stranger suddenly blocked my way. "No, we can't," draw his attention. The door burst open instead, and in walked two uniformed police officers, their presence a flicker of unexpected hope against the chaos. I turned instinctively, adrenaline pushing me forward. "Help! We need help!" I shouted, but the man's mockery filled the air, dark and toxic. "Oh, you really think they can save you?" He spat, laughter echoing against the tiled walls. "They won't understand until it's too late," but the officers didn't hesitate to draw their weapons, ordering the man to step away. I instinctively pulled Ella behind me, my heart racing as I struggled to process the sudden turn. We weren't alone anymore. Perhaps there was a chance to escape this nightmare. Yet the stranger's grip on my arm tightened again. "You don't know what you're dealing with," she insisted. "We need toy, don't care." I barked at her, my voice breaking under the strain. "She's my daughter. I will protect her." I felt Ella cling tighter to my waist as we all stood frozen, the air electric with desperation and uncertainty. The officers shouted at the man, struggling to control the ruckus, but he remained unfazed, like an ominous shadow poised to snuff out any flickers of hope. The cafe turned into a whirlpool of frantic activity, the police trying to corral the scene into control while the man stood unaffected, daring anyone to take action. My instincts screamed for me to run, to get Ella to safety, but the stranger's warnings echoed in my mind. What if running made things worse? In the chaos, Ella's voice broke through, small but clear. "Daddy, I can't breathe." I knelt down, my heart shattering at her words. I'm here. Just hold on." I cupped her face, staring into those innocent eyes that held so much fear. She needed me to be strong, to protect her from the horrors that danced in the corners of my mind. Then, without warning, the man lunged towards us, bearing a look of pure intent. "You think I'm the monster here?" "You have no idea what's coming." Before he could finish a sentence, a loud shot rang through the air. I turned instinctively, eyes wild, and saw one of the officers pulling the trigger, a flash of fear igniting in me as I forced myself to stay focused on Ella. "Daddy," she cried, trembling. And in that single breath, as the world around us fractured, I felt the ground shift beneath my feet in a way I could not comprehend. Time slowed, tension stretched taut like an elastic band on the brink of snapping, and in the distance, I heard what sounded like the crack of glass breaking through the storm. A hidden truth was about to reveal itself. In the silence that followed, I suddenly realized that I wasn't just fighting for Ella's safety. I was on the brink of unearthing a family secret buried in shadows, tangled in malevolence, one that could rip away everything I thought I had known. We weren't running from just one man. This was bigger, much more elaborate. And as the fear surged, though I felt more trapped than ever, a flicker of resolve struggled to break free from my chest. If there was even a chance to unravel the truth behind this chaos, I would grasp it. For Ella, for our future. But then, through the silence that hung heavy in the air, came the most terrifying revelation of all, echoing in my heart. What if the monster wasn't the one outside, but something far closer, something I couldn't bear to name? Chasing shadows, I felt like a mere echo of the man I once was, a facsimile built from fragments of fear, longing, and protective love. As the chaos swirled around us, I knelt in that cafe, gripping the precious hand of my daughter as if my life depended on it, because it did. Ella needed me. Whatever darkness loomed on the periphery, I promised myself I would shield her from it, armed with nothing more than love, a father's fierce dedication, and the hope that the truth could one day set us all free. The air crackled with uncertainty, and uneasiness coiled in my stomach as I searched for comfort in Ella's wide eyes, her little brow clouded over with worry. "Daddy, I'm scared," she murmured, her voice breaking the deafening silence that enveloped us. "What's happening?" I felt something sharp tear through a pang I had borne since the dreadful day her mother vanished from our lives, the day innocence dissolved into a haze of questions no child should ever have to ask. It had become all too clear that I was not just fighting a dangerous man, but the remnants of a past that refused to stay buried. "Listen to me, Ella," I whispered softly, trying to shield her from the chaos outside, willing my voice to remain calm and steady. "I won't let anyone hurt you. We'll find a way to make everything okay again." I wrapped my arms around her, a vow whispered softly against the dark undercurrents of calamity. But as I turned to face our new adversary, a man who seemed to grow more monstrous with every heartbeat, the tension snapped back, tightening like a noose around our breaths. "What do you know?" I spat, my voice trembling with a blend of fury and desperation. The man's laughter echoed eerily throughout the cafe, a vile sound that chilled my blood. "You think you have a say in this? You've got it all wrong, Daniel. You're merely a pawn in a game far more twisted than you can imagine." That I could feel tension sizzle in the air as moments stretched indefinitely around us. With every passing second, the distance between us and the truth closed in a suffocating presence that urged me to uncover the layers of deceit buried in the connection of our lives. "Ella, get down," I shouted, as the situation ballooned beyond my control. Sinister laughter echoed while I sensed that something essential was about to surface, the heaviness of unspoken truths sinking my heart like stones cast into still waters. Suddenly, a shout rang out, shaking me from my thoughts. "Freeze! Police!" The officers surged forward, but the man's dark energy held my breath captive. He turned on the police, unfazed, revealing an unsettling calmness that made my heart thud harder. Faced with chaos, would we manage to make it out alive? At that moment, the shouting intensified, the officers demanding that everyone get down and stay calm. My mind raced wildly, adrenaline coursing through my veins, propelling me to barricade Ella within the protective sphere of my body. The stranger suddenly took off toward the back door, eyes darting with purpose. She seemed to understand something I didn't, and I was left clinging to the fading hopes swirling in the air as the situation spiraled. But fear turned to rage. A man's scoffing voice echoed relentlessly. "You think you can save her? She will always find her way back to me, Daniel. Like mother, like daughter, With those words, a cataclysmic realization shattered the fragility of my world. The very foundation of my heart crumbled as pieces fell into place. My ex-wife, Joan, had brought me into a whirlwind of darkness, one that now threatened to taint Ella. My thoughts spiraled frantically, memories rushing back like a tide. The secret she had kept and the lingering pall of dread followed me like a storm cloud. Joan had fled from a past that seeped into our lives, but here it was the truth threatening to pull us under the N.O. I yelled, eyes wild and locked onto the man, my breaths quickening under the weight of those haunting words. You don't get to speak of her. She's not part of this off you. You're wrong. He grinned, maliciously. She's the key to it all. You have no idea how deeply entwined you are. A surge of uncertainty rippled through me. My heart raced as dread washed over everything I believed about love, trust, and the sacrifices demanded of parenthood. Daniel. The police shouted again, apprehensive and unsure against the violent undertow of the situation, but I was paralyzed, torn between protecting my daughter and uncovering the truth. Then chaos erupted. The stranger had reached for a nearby table, knocking it over and buying us a moment, but at what cost? Adrenaline coursed through my veins, switching gears as my instincts kicked in with primal purpose. Run! I shouted at Ella, who still clutched my arm, her little body trembling with fear. That moment of clarity was all it took. My heart hounded me, but as I turned, I found Joan's frenzied face beyond the Crodan, ethereal ghost I longed to banish. They're coming, Daniel, she yelled, a haunting mixture of fear and urgency. We have to leave now. With Elia struggling to keep pace, I felt power surge within me. Arm around my daughter, I pushed through the throng, dragging Ella even tighter to me, vowing to keep her safe. I was no longer just Daniel. I was a protector, a father willing to challenge everything for my daughter. I would not allow the past, or the choices others had made, dictate our future. Barely making it outside the cafe, I paused, head spinning with uncertainty. But when I felt the sun break through the cloudiness gripping my heart, a newfound energy surged through meth. Air grew warmer, the light embracing our frail bodies with renewed hope. I could feel Ella's small hand squeeze mine, and together we stepped into the daylight. Without looking back, we sped toward the nearby park, my mind racing with thoughts not just of survival, but redemption, a chance to heal our past. And just as we reached the entrance, a scream pierced the air, jolting my heart back in time. It was the echo of everything I'd feared, the sound of uncertainty looming just beyond the frame of our fragile lives. But I wouldn't falter now. Driven forward by love and unconditional resolve, I pressed on, my pulse racing towards sense and oblivion, clinging to the light of my daughter. No matter the storm ahead, I would chase away the shadows that sought to encircle us. Daddy, I can't breathe. Ella's soft voice lapped at the edges of my concentration again, and it struck me as fiercely as a reminder of my unwavering commitment to protect her. The revelation ignited within me, and suddenly, in the bright glare of the sun, beneath the weight of loss and trouble's answers bubbled to the surface, rising like the tide of salvation. I took a deep breath. Nothing could sap the strength I found in my daughter. Sweetie, I whispered, my voice steady now, we're going to figure this out together. No more secrets. And as we stepped resolutely beyond the park's gates into a future where hope reigned, I couldn't help but feel that for the first time in my life, I was choosing not just to run away from shadows, but to step openly into the light of a new beginning. With Ella by my side braced against the warmth of a beating heart, I made my vow. Through all tribulations ahead, I would forge an unyielding truth of acceptance and love. We would reclaim the narrative of our lives and ultimately uncover the power of forgiveness that lay cocooned within those shadows. That singular truth rose above all else, reverberating in my chest as we took our first steps into a brighter tomorrow, and with careful resolve, we began weaving a new story, one where fear faltered and love always triumphed. Together, I muttered softly, embracing the future with a heart that sang positively, together forever. As I held Ella close against the new light, I allowed myself to hope. In that moment, amidst the weight of everything we had faced, the finality of our new beginning whispered a promise. No matter the scars of our past, we would embrace the infinite possibilities of tomorrow.